How many in here have heard of operational excellence? Okay, what's it mean? Anybody want to volunteer? I promise I won't call on you. Operational excellence, you've heard of it, but you're not sure what it means, is that right?
Process improvement.
Process improvement? Okay. A lot of people have been doing it. Did you know that we actually have a master's degree in operational excellence? Jay Casey took it not too long ago and graduated with his master's degree and added to one of his many degrees he's got. But operational excellence is perfect for us in facilities because it takes a look at what you do and how can you do it better. And that's a real quick overview of what we want to talk about today is we're in operations, we want to be eminence, but we have to be excellence first. And so how do we improve to get to an eminent state? And what is an eminent state? It's a place that work can be done in an efficient manner that meets the needs of the customer and also meets your needs as the employee. Do you know that you really can't meet customers' needs without meeting your needs first? Does everybody agree with that? Okay, now I won't ask you how many of your needs are being met yet. We'll say that for another time. But that's what we want to do. We want to talk about how do we come together operational excellence. Benefits of pursuing this is training and growth opportunities, more ownership from employees. How many times have you been told, we're going to make changes and this is what you're going to do? Okay, tell me what you want to do, and I'll do it. Wouldn't it be better if you were part of that change and it was your idea that was being implemented? That's what operational excellence is all about. Tackling problems that matter. How many times do you spend every day tackling things that just really don't matter? And you know it, but that's what you were told to do. Does anybody here have that? Don't raise your hand. That's okay. Okay. Doing what we can to make the workplace better and more customer friendly. We're here for our customers. Our customers could be students, they could be other faculty, they could be patients in the med center. We're here because they're here. If they weren't here, they wouldn't need us. Are we doing a good job? What do they think of you when they see you every day? Are you representing the facilities department? Are you taking care of their needs? We want to look at standardized process for continuous improvement. Actually, what does that mean? Standardized process for continuous improvement? In America these days, it seems like everybody's got their own way of doing it. You know, as most of you know, I came from the med center, and a lot of doctors specialize in different surgeries, heart surgeries, kidney surgeries, and a lot of them have their own techniques. It's worked for many years, but they're trying to standardize what are the best techniques that all the doctors can use. Well, maintenance is the same way. There's a lot of ways to do things, but if we take a look at how we do those, there is a better way and a best way. Do we always do it? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But we want to look at it. Staff surveys that we've taken in the past says need more collaborative problem solving, need for enhanced skills, and a desire to improve customer service. What does that mean? And the way I interpret this is we need involvement from a team concept. Everything doesn't have to be driven from the top down. You are out there doing your specific professional services, and no one can do it better than you. We need your ideas if we're going to make things any better. That's what that's all about. And in the end, that'll provide better customer service, a happy customer. It's hard to make a customer happy if you're not happy. You ever notice that? You ever been to a hotel where the maid wasn't happy? You get in the elevator and they're talking about something happened earlier in the day. It just sets a bad tone. How many times do we do that here? We're upset about something, don't have the right tool, boss yelled at me. Could be a whole lot of things. How does that feed back to the customer? What is the difference about the program we're talking about today? We want to focus on processes that are already established. We don't want to create new processes. So what are things out there already that we're doing that we think could improve, or maybe we don't even need to do them? So we need to reevaluate. Do we need them? And how do we do them better? But we're not creating something new. We want to be driven by data. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it because you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going. It's kind of like, well, the saying used to be, if you don't have a roadmap, you don't know where you're going. Now I guess you would say, if you don't have a GPS or TomTom, you don't know where you're going. Take ownership of our approaches and tools. Define a more structured approach. Now, what we're going to be asking is for volunteers. Even though we're all part of operations, we're going to be asking for volunteers. Will you help make the processes we have better? This is going to help you. It's going to help us. It's going to help the university. And also, it's going to give you an opportunity to learn new skills. It's going to enhance our environment. It's going to make our department better. It'll give us more positive customer feedback. And when I say that, I don't want to downplay our customer feedback because we actually get really good feedback from the customers. You all do a good job working with them, but there's always room for improvement. And we want to include as much staff as we can in these processes. Now, one of the things I just want to reemphasize, Mike and I have been working on integration now for almost 3 years, along with Laura, Desiree, many others in this room. Our goal is a team-oriented process as much as possible. And so what we're trying to do is assemble a team of people that are highly motivated, that want to be better for themselves, that want OSU to be better. And bringing those people together and a little bit of training so that we're all on the same track is what's going to help drive our future.
What is operational excellence? Operational excellence is about pursuing excellence across the university. And the university's been doing this for a little while. Wexner Medical Center has been pursuing operational excellence probably for 10 years or so. And we've been rolling it out in AMP over the last year or so. And it's really about working simpler, smarter, and faster. So there are two young ladies who work for the university out of business finance, Kim Meyer and Mandy Stowers. And they've formed a group, and they've been here for a couple of years, called OE at OSU. And they will be helping to guide us through this process, so you may see them periodically or hear their names. So what is operational excellence or Lean Six Sigma? So I guess I want to first point out that we're going to use those terms interchangeably. Lean Six Sigma is the term that's used across all industries. Operational excellence is what we call it at the Ohio State University. But Lean Six Sigma is a methodology for problem solving and process improvement that relies on a collaborative team effort to improve performance. So it's all about working together to improve processes. And the two areas that we improve in the process are removing waste, that's the lean part, and then reducing defects or process variation, that's the Six Sigma part. We'll talk about both of those in a couple of slides and in the Yellow Belt training that we'll be telling you about shortly. But bottom line, operational excellence or Lean Six Sigma is about improving the processes through teamwork. So some of you may have been at Karen McCullough's presentation a couple of weeks back, and I have a question for you. Is Lean Six Sigma a fad or a trend? So the thought may have crossed your mind that this is just the new flavor of the month. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you dance, for those of you who were there, or maybe I will. So let's see if you can stay seated on this one. Okay, there's one. Okay, let's see who's got the music in them. Let's go. Okay, that didn't work. We'll come back to that later. That was awesome. If you guys could see the looks on your faces, that was amazing. So, Lean Six Sigma has been around for a long time, or at least versions of it. A man named Deming took these principles to Japan, which resulted in the Japanese economy bouncing back almost miraculously in the 1950s. So when Japan rose from the ashes of war to become the second most powerful economy in the world, in less than a decade, they could point to the principles that we're going to talk about today and in the Yellow Belt training that we'll be talking about in the future. So whether it's referred to as quality circles, total quality management, continuous quality improvement, these are tried and true methods, and operational excellence builds on those and actually does it much better than any of those did individually. So Lean Six Sigma builds on these methods and provides a very effective approach to process improvement. So let's talk a little bit about who's who in Lean Six Sigma, or operational excellence. So you see I have the yellow belt highlighted appropriately in yellow. I thought of that. And so there are many different players in operational excellence. Now let's just talk about a couple of them. Let's start with the yellow belt. So that's what we're talking about today. We're asking you if you're interested in joining us in learning about operational excellence through the yellow belt training. So you'll hear more about this in a little bit in those slides that are not in order, so we need to apply some process improvement there. But we also have green belts, and you'll hear from some of our green belts. Green belts are going to be the folks that will be leading the teams that we're going to ask you to participate in. And they will, over the next 6 months or so, receive about 70 hours of instruction in the methods and tools of operational excellence. There are black belts, master black belts, and then sponsors champions, and those are the executive level folks who remove hurdles and make sure that we have successful resources in order to make change. So what's in it for us? Operational excellence is really about improving our workflows, reducing waste, reducing variation, improving the workspace layout, and although these improvements ultimately benefit our customers, they make our work life better too. So by using Lean Six Sigma, we can make our own job and workplace work better. We can develop valuable job skills such as different ways to effectively make decisions, to solve problems, and to work together as teams, and to help us move from excellence to eminence, as you heard Dave say earlier. So how do we do that? To enhance our services, increase customer satisfaction, improve delivery time. So the 4 keys to Lean Six Sigma are delighting our customers, delivering higher quality service in less time, improving our processes, eliminating defects, and a defect is simply anything that's unacceptable to our customers, and focus on how the work flows through the process. And then number 3, use teamwork, working with others in the process, sharing ideas so that you can solve the problem. And then base decisions on data and facts, using objective information, not emotion, not a hunch, not a shotgun approach, to make sound decisions. So we like this picture to show us how all these elements work together to help us make positive change in our work lives. And so the 4 keys to operational excellence: delighting our customers by improving quality and speed, improving processes by improving process flow and reducing variation and defects, using teamwork to accomplish this, and basing everything, all decisions, on data and facts. So let's start by focusing on delighting our customers. It used to be that an organization would decide what features to include in a product or service based solely on what engineers or marketing staff or other experts would say it should be. You remember the quote from Henry Ford? Any customer can have a car painted any color as long as it's black. So now these old-fashioned notions are replaced by the new attitude that only customers can truly define quality. So in operational excellence, customers decide what's important. That's why operational excellence projects always start by identifying the customer, trying to figure out what the customer wants, what they care about, what makes them happy, what delights them. So who are your customers? So can I have a couple folks tell me what you do and who are your customers? Can I have a couple people actually tell me who you are, what you do, and who your customers are? Sir.
I'm the new resource team manager.
Good.
I have painters and carpenters, and I service the entire campus.
Great. So your customer is? So, start talking about those folks. Who are they?
Building coordinators.
Building
leaders.
So building coordinators and zone leaders are your customers? So who are your customers? So who's the campus? So let's get specific.
Building coordinators.
Building coordinators, students, staff, faculty. Guess what? You're looking at your customer. I'm your customer. And in what I'm doing here today, you're my customer. So everything we do in our work, yes, this is work. I get paid to do this stuff. Everything we do in our work is being done for a customer. And you're delighted that I'm doing this, aren't you? All right. So in operational excellence, thank you, by the way. In operational excellence, you'll hear a lot about the voice of the customer. You'll hear that all the time. The voice of the customer is used to indicate that the opinions and needs of the customer are being taken into account as we make decisions to improve our services. So there's a variety of tools and techniques used to determine what the voice of the customer is. Some are simple, like tracking number of complaints. Some are more complex, like having focus groups or looking at surveys. The key is to always start with our customers. So key number 1, delight your customers. So what's the voice of the customer? It's find out what your customer actually cares about. And then we have something called critical to quality characteristics. Critical to quality characteristics are the features of the product or service that are most important to your customer. So let's just say we ask our customers, so what do you think of the service we provide? And the customer says, I hate dealing with your organization. And that happens every once in a while. We don't like to hear it, but we need to hear it. So what does the person actually mean? What does the customer mean when they say they hate dealing with us? Well, that's what we need to find out. So we ask why. And oftentimes we need to ask why 5 times. And that's going to be one of the tools you'll learn about in the Yellow Belt training. So we ask why. Why does the customer hate dealing with us? Well, it turns out that perhaps the services are not delivered on time. So we ask why, and then we develop a critical to quality characteristic around the voice of the customer and why they don't like or like what we do. And in this case, they want a 10-day lead time. And when it takes more than 10 plus or minus a day or two that's when they say, oh, I hate dealing with you guys. So the idea here is to find out what the customer thinks, get to the root of why the customer thinks that, and develop something that will delight them. So that if we deliver our services within 10 days in this example, then we will have delighted customers. Does that make sense? So this is just one tool, typically at the beginning of a project, that we use to figure out what our customers want. Key number 2, improve your processes. So once you understand your customers, the next step is figuring out a way to get better at delivering what they want. And the answer lies in improving the processes we use to generate the services we provide. So Dr. Deming, an American statistician who led that quality movement we talked about earlier, spent much of his time trying to convince people that most quality problems are in the processes, not in the people. In fact, he said that 85% of the issues and problems that we encounter at work are due to processes, not people. In the last few years of his life, he admitted his 85-15 rule was probably wrong. And he revised it to 96-4. He said his life experiences and his experience with these principles found that 96%, give or take, of the problems in an organization were due to processes, not people. So why does this matter? Because to make improvements in the work, we need to change how the work gets done. And that's why operational excellence focuses on process improvement. And what does it take to improve processes? Eliminate variation and improve process flow and speed. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about each one of these. We know in our guts that nothing is exactly the same day in and day out. Some days it takes longer to get to work, or to get lunch, or to do other things that we do every day than it does on other days. Everything varies. What's important is the way something varies, the patterns in the variation. So these patterns can expose the cause of the problems and point the way to the right solutions. The language around variation uses a term, Six Sigma. You may have seen the term sigma or the symbol sigma on the front of a fraternity house. Sigma is a Greek word used by statisticians, and it stands for the amount of variation seen in a process. Stick with me. I know this is dry, but you'll get it in a second if you don't already. So if variation is seen in a process or a set of data or anything that we measure, we refer to that as sigma. And to illustrate this, in these diagrams, represent, each one of these dots represents a single measure taken on a process. So let's say that these are delivery times or weights or lengths or satisfaction scores. It can be anything that's measurable. Each one of these is a point. Our target is right here. You can see that we might hit our target. Let's say this is me and how long it takes me to drive to work in the morning. So let's say on any given day it takes me a half hour. Or on average it takes me a half hour. Sometimes, if there's any precipitation at all, anything, it can take me up to an hour. And then there are some days when I go in early or I stay late where I can get home in 12 minutes. That's true. So if there's no traffic, it's a 12-minute drive. But if there's any variable, it'll typically take me a half hour. It can take me up to an hour and sometimes more. So there's lots of variability in my drive time in Columbus, Ohio. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, a place called the Polish Village. Anybody familiar with it? I see we are not on the map. Okay, so in Toledo, from the Polish Village to any place in Toledo, it takes me about 15 minutes to get anywhere. My drive in Toledo was pretty much 15 minutes plus or minus 5 minutes. Didn't matter. Snow, rain, sleet, didn't matter. The heart of the Polish village, the edge of the Polish, didn't matter. Pretty much 15 minutes plus or minus 5 minutes. So lots of variation, very little variation. What we try to do is limit the amount of variation in our processes. Because our customer, in our last example, customer wants this a response in 10 days. If it's 9 days or 11 days, customer's still happy. What if it's 20 days? No, probably not. What if it's 2 days? That might be good, or it might not be good. Because sometimes, when I schedule work at my house for a contractor to come in, sometimes I want it in 10 days. If you come in 2 days, you might see stuff that you don't want to see. You might walk in the middle of things you don't want to walk in the middle of. So I rely on that 10 days plus or minus a day. So again, variation, very important in our improvements. So can you think of any examples of processes that have lots of variation? Any examples? I got one. How about going to the BMV to renew your license? How long does it take? How long? Forever. Yeah. Okay, let's be a little more specific. It's time consuming. How time consuming? Last time you were there, how long?
Last time I was there, actually, it proved 20 minutes.
3 hours, 20 minutes. Anybody else? 5 minutes. Every time 5 minutes?
No.
No.
First thing Saturday morning, first person in line, 5 minutes.
First person in line, first thing Saturday morning, 5 minutes. How about noon on a Saturday? Could take 3 hours, right? Lots of variability.
Mike said 5 minutes. How long did he stand in line? What's the total process?
Arrived at 9, left at 9:05.
Okay.
I have the same. I can do that to 5 minutes.
I learned from John Keller. He teaches me everything.
So, lots of variation in that process. We try to remove variation in operational excellence, and we have tools to do that. So variation is one of the most common sources of problems. Another source is how the work flows through the process. The handoffs from person to person, from workstation to workstation, or the physical path the work follows in the office or the building. And one of the ways to speed up the process is to eliminate steps in the process. Or another way is to redesign how the work flows in the workspace. So this is why teams often spend the first few meetings, the early parts of the project, drawing a map of the process or a flow chart. So let's see if the process map our operational excellence team created is clear and concise. So let's all stand up. I'm going to ask you all to stand up for a second. And let's see if we can follow the steps of the process. Okay, so the first step is, after the start note, is put your right foot in. Okay, now, this is a decision node in our process map. Has your right foot previously been in? The answer is no. So we go this route, put your right foot out. Okay? Put your right foot in. Has your right foot previously been in? Yes. Now shake it all about. Okay, now this is the part that I can't remember. Do the hokey pokey. Whoa. Is that the hokey pokey? Holy moly. Really? You know, I need to do more research before I do these things. Okay, let's do it. If that's the way, can someone else show me the hokey pokey, please? That's the hokey pokey? Oh. All right. Do the hokey pokey. Show me. And turn yourself around. And that, folks, is what it's all about. Give yourself a hand. And since you didn't give yourself a hand, give Desiree a hand. She definitely deserves a hand. All right. So, we're going to talk more about tools and methods to remove waste and eliminate process steps in the Yellow Belt training, but you'll have lots of really fun exercises like that, or maybe not. Key number 3, working together. So in an organization focused on operational excellence, we not only work together on formal teams to make improvements, but we encourage people to work together every day. This makes work life more fulfilling. It makes people more enthusiastic. They enthusiastically share with and learn from each other. Meetings are more productive and energetic. Information is shared openly and honestly, even bad news. So is this different from what you're used to? I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. But the Yellow Belt training will cover ways to move in the right direction. Let's talk a little bit about team roles. The team leader is usually a green or black belt, and they're responsible for leading and coaching the team and for delivering results on the project. The champion's an executive level manager. They have responsibility for guiding the Lean Six Sigma efforts, making sure that resources are provided and hurdles are removed. Process owner, usually the manager or director who's directly responsible for the process being improved. They're the people that take ownership of the improvements after they're made, and they're typically involved in the process improvement. Then team members, and this is where we're getting to you. Team members can be anybody in the organization. Typically they receive some kind of training. In our case, it's going to be the Yellow Belt training. And they work part-time on the projects in their work areas. And then ad hoc members are brought on for their expertise on an as-needed basis. And then lastly, key number 4, basing decisions on data and facts. And this really forms the true foundation of Lean Six Sigma. So if we want to know who our customers are and what they want, or if we want to improve processes, we need to collect data. And the data that we're collecting is around variation, defects, and process flow. And if we want to avoid arguments that destroy teamwork, we should have a rule that people must support their opinions with facts and data. So sometimes the data already exists, and it quickly tells us what's going on in a process. Often there are patterns in the data that give us a good idea of what's going on. Other times we need to collect data. So here's an example of data that was collected, and this is arriving to work on time, and this is by day of week. So we can see Monday through Friday, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Is there a pattern in the data? What is the pattern? Rainy days and Mondays always get me. Forget it. So Mondays are something's going on, right? Do we know what's going on? No, but we know where to look. So we collect data on the front end, and then that tells us where the issue might be, which causes us to perhaps collect more data or analyze it in a different way. So to avoid a lot of arguments, wasted time, confusion, we can let data lead the way to the real issues. So a quick review. First thing we learned about, customers are important. Speed, quality, and low cost are linked, and we need to eliminate variation, defects, and focus on process flow. Data's critical. It gets the opinion and preconceived ideas out of the way, and people need to work together to make the kinds of improvements that customers will notice. So there are lots of different approaches to process improvement. We talked about a couple of them. How many people have heard of quality circles? I actually have heard of them and used them. There are lots of different approaches. How about continuous quality improvement? Okay, some folks. So there are lots of different models, lots of different approaches. In Lean Six Sigma, we use the DMAIC model, which is there in the burst, the yellow burst. And we're going to talk about what DMAIC means, but it's really structured to keep the teams on track, keep the projects moving towards success so that we're applying the appropriate methods and tools at the right times. So every organization has problems that get solved over and over again only to reappear. So teams work on problems for months sometimes, implementing solutions that people know will work, and then they don't. And that's why Lean Six Sigma uses this modern problem-solving method designed to avoid such failures. DMAIC is short for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So the DMAIC model forces teams to use data to really get to the heart of the problem. What is the problem? And it forces them to define it. Then get to the root causes of the problem, not just the symptoms, but the root causes. Find solutions that are based on evidence and facts. And then establish procedures that ensure that the improvement continues after the project's completed. First step of the DMAIC process is define. The purpose is for the team to agree on what we're going to do. What is the project? And the typical activities that take place in the define phase are developing a project charter, getting customer data, finding out the voice of the customer, reviewing the existing data, drafting a high-level map of the process, and putting together a plan on what we're going to do in our team. This is an example of a project charter. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it does define very clearly what the problem is, what the extent of the problem is, what's the business case, like what are we really going to gain out of this, and what's our goal, what are we really trying to do, what's in scope, what's not in scope. And then what's not listed here is who's on the team and what's the timeline for the improvement. This is a living document, and it pretty much just stays alive through the course of the project and changes as we learn more in the project. We also create that process map and eliminate process steps in a later phase. So if everybody could just stand again one more time. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I know my limits. I know my limits. Sorry. So at this time, we're going to go through each one of these phases. So we just told you what the define phase does. I'm going to ask Darren Lehman to come up and talk a little bit about a project, an operational excellence, easy for me to say, project that Darren was involved in a few years ago that really demonstrates what operational excellence is all about and what it can look like in your areas.